It's been a couple days since the last trail report. Had some messages and questions. I was out in Utah for 5 days. Some of the guys that, well, my good friends, but some of the guys that help us a lot with Core and I would go out to Utah on a crawler camping trip for several days, usually the end of April or depending on how the calendar falls, 1st of May. So try and get a bunch of trails in and some off-roading before stuff here really starts to open up. So yeah, that's why this video is a little bit late for conditions and trail reports compared to the last video. And to start, I have seen several updates. So there was a report on Spring Creek posted 5 days ago. Guys got about 2.5 miles in just before that hard left-hand turn when you get to the rock garden section. So right about there, before they ran into really deep snow, they couldn't get through. And then I also saw one on Billmore Lake. You know, they were about 2.25 miles, so above the chutes. If you took that as an option, they could get up there and get to that 2.25 mile mark. If you didn't and you did the bypass, in that report, the opinion was that you wouldn't be able to get through the bypass because of deep snow. So I have seen both of those. Those are both reports on Trails Off-Road with pictures. We'll go back to more on reports on Trails Off-Roads in a minute. But yesterday I also saw Juanita Pass. It's posted open. A little bit of snow, 12 inches or less, that you'd have to drive through at the top. But that was passable over the top. And that's from one of my good friends is Corey. He and his family own the Pitkin General Store, Gunnison County there in Pitkin. He's a big supporter of Core and just motorized use in general. And most of our early season information before we can get over the top of the pass or the Continental Divide, at least in an easy fashion without going all the way around the long way over Monarch, he gives us all the information from what's going on their side. So a big thanks to Corey and the Silver Plume General Store over there. If you happen to be around Pitkin in the summer, be sure to stop in, tell them hi, and support that motorized based business over there in Pitkin. I checked Mendano Pass. That has not been updated by the Park Service since the 28th, so that our last report still stands. Nothing beyond that. What else have I seen? Mount Princeton. I'll show you the view of the Collegiate Peaks here in a minute when I get up here where I'm going. Mount Princeton Road is seasonally closed now until April 15th, so that's been open at least to use, not fully open up to the chalet, but the road is not seasonally closed since April 15th. And even with the recent snowfall that we've had over the last week, it'll only be a day or two until things that were uncovered before are uncovered again. So you could probably get right up there to the radio tower parking area, or just kind of the makeshift parking area where people usually are looking to summit that, get up there and just kind of find places to park to drop their vehicle. So you could get that far. The switchbacks above that are usually what holds the snow pretty late into June most years, so that will not be passable for a while above that. And then right now I'm driving up to the seasonal gate one of the seasonal gates in Fourmile North. It's right outside of Buena Vista. This gate is no exaggeration, literally 5 minutes from my house. So I'm driving up here to confirm that that seasonal gate and the rest of them are in fact open. I've heard that they are from volunteer groups here in Chaffee County, but I'm going to double check just to make sure that somebody got around and did in fact open those gates. So those are May 1st gates, all of 4 Mile North and all of 4 Mile South, with the exception of Dead Horse Gulch behind S Mountain in Salida. That one, for whatever reason, is April 15th. So that one has been open since the 15th and is fully passable. Had a report on that. That was included in the last list. So let's drive up here to this gate and see if it is in fact open. So here we are, driving right up here to the gate. So you can see that gate is swung open there, and the road is open for summer use. And that's the information that I'd had from others around the district, that Salida had gotten out and opened these gates. So that's a really good sign that they were out here on May 1st. So not quite a week ago, but they were out here on time opening these gates so we could all come out to 4 Mile North and enjoy summer trails. This would also mean that the road behind me here that we just drove through, this gate that goes up to 4 Mile Creek, continues straight, and there's a left-hand branch that goes out onto Pipeline Overlook. Very underrated route and overlook for the Arkansas River Valley outside of Buena Vista. It's amazing up there if you have time to check that out. But then farther down from where we first drove up, that means that up into 7 Miles also open. The eastern half of Len Hardy Cutoff into Chubb Park, all of Chubb Park is open. And then on the south side, 185D and Aspen Ridge is also open too, because those have the May 1st designation. So now you could go through Aspen Ridge, go all the way down to the town of Turret, and actually come all the way out into Salida if you wanted to. So all of 4 Mile North and South seasonal gates are officially open. So I'm going to drive back down a bit to an area that we can find that's open, where you can really see now the Collegiate Peaks, just show you what it looks like outside of Buena Vista over the last week. It's really been sometimes heavily raining in Buena Vista, raining off and on since I left last Thursday to go out to Utah. So everything's looking, pretty good, fairly white, at least for the moment, until, the exposed areas have the sun hitting them and even some wind, and conditions dry out a little bit. So we'll go down there, we'll go down a little bit and look at that. So I mentioned some of those routes earlier that I'd seen trails reports on, and I got those just by looking on Trails Off Road. So sometimes I get reports from the groups that I'm in, and I'll see people, go on trails and give an update on those. But a lot of them that I report on just come from Trails Off Road, the trail site where the trail map and the guide is written, and then people post reports. And I've mentioned this before, I've been a contributor to Trails Off Road since like 2018, way before there was an app or the modern version of the site and the info. And I update that a lot. So every time I'm out or I see things, then I'll post a report on Trails Off Road, so we have the most accurate information we can. That's not perfect, and I won't claim that it is, and it's not always a live version of what's happening on the ground, but it is a very, very good resource to check conditions, how things look, and if somebody submitted a report, but also to go back and look at past years. So anything that I go on, any of the trails that I'm on in any of these videos, I always put reports on. In fact, anytime I'm anywhere, I put reports on. I mean, we ran a whole bunch of trails out in Moab, and then even 21 Road through Junction Fruita area on our way out, and I posted trail reports on all of those. Several years ago, we pull a permit for Coyote Canyon out by BFE every year, and several years ago I wrote the guide for Coyote Canyon. I always grab new photos and continue to update the information. We post trip reports on that too. So that's a good way to get information really quick, just by searching around for some of the trails. And then if you get trails in certain areas, you can look at what the elevation is of those reports and then you can project it across, because usually what will happen is in the spring, as things start to warm up and start to melt out, you'll see similar elevation levels where the snow is. And that's why I always give you elevation reports in my videos, and sometimes even in the trail list, because the surrounding area, maybe a little bit whether the trail faces on the north side or the south side, but it's very similar in terms of how the snow recedes in elevation. So that can give you a good idea, if you have one report, how you can kind of project that out and estimate where it's at. But the other part is, and I said this a lot in videos and even on posts and answering questions online, just go out and look. If you don't see a report for somewhere and you're asking, just go look. I promise you, you will not have a bad day out. If you take time, you go out into the backcountry, you go up a trail, even if it's for a little ways, it will be a worthwhile trip to be out in a vehicle in the backcountry, having a good time exploring. And then send us the information. So I'm always asking that. If you have some information, you've been out, message the page, message me, put a comment on there. We'll include that. I'll even tell you, I'll give you credit for who submitted that information in the videos. Just let us know. That way we have, an even fuller, more comprehensive list when we're making the trails reports. And then a couple things to update. So I mentioned the Mount Princeton date, but keep in mind, I've said this before, the Tincup and the Hancock Road date are both May 15th. Now listen closely to the Tincup one, because that one has a gate on it. So the gate is scheduled to open usually on May 15th. That will not happen this year. I can tell you right now. And the reason is because there was a big mud hole that really formed last fall on the lower part of the St. Elmo side before the Colorado Trail intersection. We did a little work last year. I was hoping to fix it all last year. So we've been working with road engineering from the Forest Service to implement a solution they identified for that section. We started that work last November, and we got half of it done, and then early snow chased us out. So the plan is to fix that, or has been the plan to fix that this spring once everything was melted out and we could get to it. We were going to do that this weekend and fix it so it would be in time for the May 15th opening, but due to the last week of snow, that's going to push us back at least a week. So until that mud hole is fixed, that gate won't open. And it doesn't really matter that it won't open, because you won't be able to get through that mud hole anyway. We staged a bunch of logs. We did some work. I'll show you some stuff of what we did last November to get ready for this. So we're on Tincup today, but I'm shooting a little bit of video because there's quite a bit of snow. There was snow all the way from St. Elmo. The whole pass is covered in snow from coming out of St. Elmo all the way to up here. We get any more snow, it's probably going to be done for the season. We're going to look at doing some stuff here at this huge mud pit. So the new road's going to go right over the top of the mud hole. We closed the bypass section to the left. So if you were able to get up there right now and you drove up there, there's no option other than to go through the big section of the middle of that mud bog with like a 4-foot ledge on the uphill side to climb out of that mud pit. We staged like 30 logs that are 20 feet, about 20 feet long, and we're going to build some corduroy in there, go across the top with some geotech fabric, and then use the natural soil material to go right over top of that, so you won't even know. It'll just look like a dirt road all the way through there. I'll do a full project video so you'll be able to see everything that we do, because it's really interesting, and then give you the full update when that is done. So once that's done, then we will open the gate for the season on Tincup. So that one's going to be a little bit delayed. I'll go up on the 15th on the opening day on the Hancock side, check snow conditions, see how far we can go. So that'll be Hancock, that'll be Pomeroy, probably Grizzly as well, and probably have something to look at on the Mount Antero side too. So that'll probably be the next video that we'll have next week, that I can look at some of that, and then we'll give you a a project update at some point in the future when we fix that Tincup mud pit. So I've had a lot of questions about that. What are you doing? Are you guys doing anything? Are you aware of it? And to answer all of those, yes. Not only are we aware of it, we're mid-project. That should be done obviously before the end of May. The road will be open, and then we'll watch for it to melt out and schedule a date where we can dig out the top so we can get all the way over the top. So stay tuned for that future information. So 4 Mile always gives you a pretty cool vantage point of what the Collegiate Peaks look like up here. So obviously that's Princeton. Right here you can see the peak of Antero there, and then the ridge of Mount White. So that's what they look like. We can pan over here. That's Mount Yale right there. The front part there is Red Deer. So you can see the snow line is clear down to probably around 9,000 feet right now. A little bit farther, that's Columbia. Then you can just see the ridges of Harvard right there too. So that's what they look like. Pretty good spring snow. You know, Princeton has some really steep parts on it. So when it's really blanketed like that, that was pretty good snow that came in. But again, this late in the season, that's not really adding to our, peak winter snowpack. Those dates have already passed. Like I said, the upper arc date for median peak is April 15th, which is long gone. So we're on the downhill from that. But it is always nice to get spring moisture. And then, once the days really start heating up again later this week, they'll look more typical to how they did before this snow moved into the valley in central Colorado for the last week.